Hi, everyone. I'm Rebecca Levy from JBS International, which serves as the Secretariat for the M-Education Alliance. Sorry for the delay. We are working on technology, fittingly enough. So we have 3 virtual participants who I hope are there. You guys there?
Yes?
Yes, we are.
Okay,
Hi.
great. And 2 in-person participants. So this is a hybrid session for you. So welcome to the session about the gender and ICTs. We're going to be talking about STEM and also access to education and empowering women and girls. So I think we're hoping that you'll be able to see the virtual participants on the screen, except for maybe Mark. So the way that I think we'll run this session is that we'll give each of the presenters a few minutes to talk about their projects, and then we'll open it up so we have plenty of time for questions and comments. And hopefully also through Twitter we can get questions at the same time. So maybe we can start with the folks who are here. Should we start with the live people first? Not live. So let me introduce Karen. Sorry, can't hear me? Okay. So let me introduce Karen first, who is currently the principal investigator for National Girls Collaborative Project, funded by National Science Foundation, and the CEO of EdLab Group, an education equity nonprofit foundation. She has 25 years of experience in education as a classroom teacher, university instructor, teacher educator, and program administrator and researcher. So Karen, I'll give the floor to you for about three minutes or
Sure.
so. I'll give you a warning.
Good. Well, thank you so much. I'm excited to be on this panel. I'm actually a very early adopter of technology. I don't even want to talk about my first computer, which didn't even have a hard drive when I think about it now. So the National Girls Collaborative Project is a large national network of girl-serving STEM programs, both in school and out of school, and all of the different stakeholders who care about getting more girls and women engaged in science, technology, engineering, and math. And we're organized via state collaborative networks. So we're in 44 states. And as Rebecca said, we're funded primarily by the National Science Foundation. And what we do is we help those state collaboratives build the capacity of the girl-serving STEM programs in their state. So we bring resources, we help them collaborate. We really feel that the first step to collaboration is connecting programs together. A lot of times you might be somewhere and somebody will say, go collaborate, go network. And if you don't know somebody, how can you do that? So our philosophy is based on needs and resources, the idea that everybody has resources to share and everybody has needs, of course. And by having a thoughtful conversation that's very structured around what you need and what you have, that often we find that projects can increase their impact and they didn't even need much funding. So we've been around for about 12 years. We've just added 4 new states, and I think that's probably all I need to say right now. We are serving around 8 million girls and 4.5 million boys as well.
Okay, great. Great, Karen. So we'll save the, do you want to save the questions for afterward?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. So let's move on to Alice, who's from Intel. Alice is the Director of Global Healthcare Policy, sorry, can you hear me better? For Intel Corporation. She works with U.S. and international policymakers on healthcare reform and health IT issues in developed and emerging economies. She's focused on healthcare reform, specifically innovative technologies for care delivery, including e-care, remote patient monitoring, and telehealth. She interfaces with government agencies worldwide to promote the adoption of viable electronic health records.
Thank you, Rebecca. That's plenty. And as you can hear, I'm not an education specialist. My primary focus is on healthcare, but I have worked on education issues for Intel and have loved doing so, because if there were one issue that Intel is known for, besides Intel Inside, it's education. That is the topic where we have put so many resources about time, money, resources, people, and it is the most important issue to Intel. How can we help develop the next generation of technology gurus who will change the world? And along the path, we've done several far-reaching programs. The first one I wanted to talk a little bit about is Intel Teach. Are any of you in the room familiar with that program? Well, since the year 2000, we have trained 10 million teachers in 70 countries. And our idea is that we want to train the teachers to incorporate technology into the classroom as part of the lesson plan, not the lesson plan. So we have, of course, run programs to train the teachers to teach others, particularly in emerging markets. And because I know that part of the conversation today is about public-private partnerships, it's really important to have that partnership with the local government to make sure that your programs scale. So we're continuing to teach. I think of this 10 million, well over half, maybe 75%, have been outside the United States. And so today we're doing a study on how has this impacted the teachers that have been trained? Have we seen a difference in their career path and their professional development? So that research is due out next week. So we'll all be looking for it to see exactly what difference we have made in the world for that project. The other program that I wanted to say a few words about are the science fairs that we invest in. STS, everyone used to know it as the Westinghouse Science Fair. Well, it's been the Intel Science Fair for more than a dozen years. And we bring together students from all over the country, seniors, to participate in the fair right here in the United States. We bring in the 40 top students. And those students are just amazing. And there are, yes, boys and girls, but the girls are usually outnumber the boys in this contest. And, you know, they are the brightest and the best. They're just amazing, amazing students. And then we do an international program, which reaches out worldwide to 6 million students to get them involved in some level of the science fair. So after the 6 million compete, we bring 1,600 to the United States to compete on site in this fair. And they can be from sophomores to seniors in high school. So this year, the winner was a boy, Jack Andraka, and he has developed a cure for pancreatic cancer. Wow. And he is just so, like, incredible. You know, he's been on 60 Minutes and Dr. Oz, and, you know, people just can't get over this kid. And, you know, we know he's going to go on to do great things, and he probably would have, whether Intel identified him or not. But it's really the process of investing in the programs, in the kids that value science as much as football. So last year, I remember dramatically one of the parents talking with us about her student who was a senior in the STS contest. And she said, you know, other kids are playing in the band or playing on soccer teams. This is my daughter's place to excel. And this is just so, you know, it really touches your heart as a parent to think about, you know, this is the place for the scientists to really go and feel good about their work and to stay involved. And I could talk about a few more. Would you like for me to stop at this point?
Let's stop there for now, and we'll have more in the discussion. So let's now go over to our virtual participants who are joining us from Paris, and also Roya, I think you're in Afghanistan at the moment, unless you're traveling. So why don't we start with Roya? Are you there, Roya?
Yes.
Okay, great. So can everybody, oh, Roya, we can't see you. Can you turn on your webcam? We saw you a couple minutes ago. Oh, there you are.
Just
Hello. Okay. So
hello.
Roya Abbu, sorry, who some of you may have heard of, is an Afghan entrepreneur and businesswoman. She founded and serves as CEO of Afghan Citadel Software Company, which is a full-service software development company based in Herat, Afghanistan, founded in 2010. She founded it with two classmates in an investment of $20,000 US. And the aim of the company was to create jobs for recent university graduates, specifically women, in Afghanistan's growing tech market. So Roya, it'd be great if you could tell us a bit about how you developed this company. And Roya has also been named to Time Magazine's 100 most influential people in the world for her work building classrooms with internet-enabled classrooms in high schools in Afghanistan. So Roya, go ahead.
Thank you, Rebecca. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure to be with you today. I would like to start by discussing how we bring equal access to education for women and girls in Afghanistan. I think education for women is very important because it gives them the freedom to think and courage to accomplish anything, to be happier and have more productive life. It's also a way to improve gender equality and promote economic schools to have a healthier development for both the families and society. It has enabled me to do what any successful business person does, analyze the market, identify the need, and fill in the requirement. I saw the incredible power of education and social media and IT from my own personal experience. And I thought that I could apply this to Afghan women to empower them to change their life. To that end, we have successfully provided educational tools through social media for women in Afghanistan with the full respect of local tradition. Female students can develop professional skills and generate revenue to support their families, change the culture of Afghanistan, and improve its economy from within their family. As Rebecca says, in 2010, along with several other colleges, I established the Afghan Citadel software with the goal to create a job for women in Afghanistan using tech mark. To that end, we have hired 20 women who work full-time and hundreds working online. 5,000 are registered on our system and platform. We are also working with our partner, Francesco Rulli, the founder and the president of Formanex, to support the education of children in Central Asia and supports women's empowerment in developing countries, starting from Afghanistan. The most efficient project of the Women and Next Foundation has been to build 10 internet classrooms in high schools in Herat and 2 IT centers for filmmakers and writers in Kabul, Afghanistan. So far, we could connected more than 40,000 female students to the world of social media to start communicating without a border and become digital citizens. We also developed WomenX, a self-sustainable digital platform ecosystem that supports women empowerment in Afghanistan. There are a few key factors that give us future confidence. It's all started from the needs and natural desires of humans to tell stories, share ideas, and provide happiness to their families. This is why we have been working hard to arm female students of Herat with the right tools so they can be able to communicate it with the rest of the world, get access to digital literacy and training, become financially self-sufficient, and support their families. We were able to train and motivate and put online nearly 5,000 women and girls and allow them to generate great revenue through the WomenX innovative process for Agreed. We call our member Digital Corner, who have now the freedom to raise their voices by creating quality content such as articles, blogs, and videos. We also implemented e-learning technology called Examer software that connected the students to the world of business. Another part of Examer software is the content creator, where the students and individual can research ideas and create the content. The user and the students are now content creators and are rewarded by micro scholarship. In parallel, they are immediately registered an active user in WomenX platform and benefit from the bonus for digital income, which measure their social media influence, reach content quality. By doing so, the individual female students has immediate access to worldwide communication without borders, distributing platform to express their thought, storytelling. They can earn money, sustainable education to take their studies, futures, and support their families.
That's really impressive. Okay. So now let's switch and move over to Paris momentarily. Hi, Abel. This is Abel Kane. He's a program specialist for UNESCO at UNESCO headquarters. Can everybody see Abel? Yes? Okay. So Abel works in the Open Solutions and the Knowledge Societies Division at UNESCO headquarters, specializing in open education resources in mobile learning. Abel's been responsible for working directly with governments and key educational and research institutions, NGOs, teachers, and learners to implement enabling policy frameworks, development of online communities of practice, and capacity building to enhance universal access to high-quality education and sustainable development. Abel, can you speak a little bit about the work that you've been doing and how OERs, Open Education Resources, have been working to help reduce the gender gap?
Well, good evening. Bonsoir, everybody. I hope the sound is coming through okay.
Yep, we hear you.
Okay, so at UNESCO, my responsibility is to assist member states or governments to develop the necessary enabling policies as well as the bottom-up capacity building for open educational resources. Just to be sure that we'll all have the exact same understanding of open educational resources. These are very simply any type of educational materials that have either been released into the public domain or they've been released with an open license that freely and legally allows any user to use, to copy, to adapt, and to redistribute these materials. OERs therefore present to both the creator a very effective and legal means to freely share their knowledge, and to the user a wonderful opportunity to find very high quality educational materials or training resources or courses or textbooks or tools, and to adapt these to their own teaching and learning circumstances. So what this means is that some of the world's best teachers, the world's best educators are now using OERs to share their knowledge. And previously in countries, especially the developing countries where UNESCO works in, they now have an opportunity to tap into, to more or less easily find these materials and to use them and adapt them to their teaching and training circumstances. And what we do at UNESCO is try to work directly with ministries of education, with educational institutions, especially higher education, but also secondary and primary, to work with the teachers and even with the students themselves to make them aware of what are OERs, how to find them, how to create their own, how to promote them, how to evaluate them, to see whether or not they've achieved their educational goals, and then later on, how to promote these worldwide. And so we do this at many levels by organizing very large events, such as the 2012 World Open Educational Resources Congress, by continually encouraging publications, the release of publications, of course, now being openly licensed. I'm very proud to say that UNESCO was the first United Nations organizations to officially adopt an open license policy. So after 67 years now, where all our publications previously used to be copyrighted, from June of this year onwards, every single new publication is going to be openly licensed. We also encourage heavy or deep or extensive research into OERs, because when we go to talk with the Minister of Education, we have to show them empirical proof that investing what are sometimes meager resources in the development of educational materials, that if they convert them across to becoming OERs, they do work. They will achieve the educational goals that they have. To directly answer the question of how can OERs help young girls and women. Um, I could have a very long answer, but I'm just going to focus maybe on two. The first one is that we will always directly, at UNESCO, gender equality is a global priority. What that means is that 50% of everything that we do, or 50% of every person that we try to target, must always be gender specific. If we hold a workshop, we try very hard to make sure that 50% of that audience are women. We try to make sure that 50% of the presenters are women. So I'm very happy to see that this panel is more than 50% women. So that would make the UNESCO staff very happy. Secondly, we always try to make sure that our creators, we specifically target women. And then thirdly, we try to make sure that the issues are always also targeting women. I should be more clearer, not women, but gender equality. It's very important to target both men and women about why gender equality is so important. And most of the time our battle for gender equality is with the men who hold the patriarchal power structures. Men usually dominate most of the decision making, and to us, our role at UNESCO is to educate them on why it is so critically important that women and their position is elevated so that it is equal.
Thank you, Abel. Okay, and then I'll hold my questions and comments, and so we can go over to Mark. Mark is also joining us from Paris. Unfortunately, we don't have a video feed from Mark, so you'll just hear Mark. You won't get to see his pretty face. Mark also works at UNESCO headquarters. He works in the section for teacher development and education sector policy at UNESCO headquarters. He's authored several papers on the intersection of technology and education and helps oversee several field projects in Africa. He's currently studying the efforts to leverage mobile technology for reading, particularly in developing countries. Mark, would you like to talk for a few minutes about the projects you're working on and how they relate specifically to empowering women and girls?
Yeah. Thank you very much, Rebecca. And apologies that don't have a video feed. I'd like to make just a few points about the sort of intersection of education, gender, and mobile learning. The first is, in our global scan of different mobile learning projects, we've found that, of course, mobile learning is not a cure-all, but where it seems to be most effective is to expand and enrich existing educational projects. For example, UNESCO runs a program in Pakistan, and in that program, we have worked with girls who are attending a school, and we've given them phones, and the phones allow them to access literacy materials outside of school. So they have a physical component where they meet in regular classrooms, but then they have opportunities to practice their literacy skills outside of classrooms. Those types of arrangements tend to be most effective. The second point is to really make an effort to understand the different needs on the ground. One of my favorite examples here is in Cambodia. There's a project that gives phones specifically to women and girls. And the organizers discovered that the men were taking the phones. They were using the phones that had been given to the girls for their own purposes. But the organizers discovered that if you painted the phones pink, the men would not take them. So this is just one example of really you need to understand the sort of idiosyncratic needs on the ground. Another project also in Southeast Asia, the organizers discovered that the girls were keeping the phones in the kitchen where the men did not go. However, the phones were being exposed to extreme heat. So they discovered that by changing the brand of the phone to a phone that was more resistant to heat, they were able to better ensure the project longevity. The final point I'd like to make is that when working with mobile phone projects is to keep it simple. We see many projects that try to establish sort of very elaborate things using simple mobile devices. But what seems to be most impactful are often projects that simply work using SMS, very sort of basic technology. And remembering that often the target audience, not only do they have educational needs, but they often don't have very good information about how to use devices. So it's important to think about the technical aspects of the program. So I think we run a project in Nigeria, and we've discovered that there, a simple SMS system seems to be most effective. There's nothing particularly groundbreaking about it, but it gets the job done.
Thanks, Mark. So first I want to thank you all, those of you who are here and those of you who are virtual, for sharing a bit about your projects. I think this gives a good, very diverse set of examples, some on the more domestic side, as Karen was sharing about the National Girls Collaborative Project, and then Intel, about Intel Teach, and Roya's projects and UNESCO's projects. Obviously, there are many complex issues when we're talking about mobile education and STEM projects and empowering women and girls, and how do we get more girls involved in STEM. I think it's still, I was reading a statistic on Forbes, and that's obviously mostly focused on domestic. About 27% of computer science jobs, for example, are held by women currently. So clearly there's a huge gender gap that still exists. So I just wanted to pose a few questions to the panel, and then we'll open it up to questions from the audience and on Twitter. One of the questions that I always think about and get people hear me ask is, how do you implement a gender-sensitive mobile project where there are large gender gaps, but you are also needing to be sensitive to the cultural context in which you're working? So you have, for example, I think Mark or Abel mentioned this, in some countries, mobile phone ownership is restricted to men. It's not culturally acceptable for women to own a phone. So do you guys have any sort of successful practices? Mark mentioned one, painting the phones pink. That's been a popular one that we've heard a lot about. Are there any other things that you've learned sort of through your process about what are things that have worked well, what are things that have not worked well? Could be from domestic side also. How do you adapt things to make sure that they're gender sensitive and also responding to the local context?
Well, I can say a little bit about some of the strategies we know get girls excited and engaged in STEM. And I think we're talking about making sure it's culturally relevant and that there's context. And I think that's a global strategy, that girls want to work on something that is going to make a difference. And so thinking about a project, maybe even involving girls in the design of the project, thinking about what it is that they care about and what they're most interested in, and making sure that the strategies that are used engage girls in that. So, I would say often I see projects just sort of plopped and implemented in places, and I don't really know if the people that are involved in those projects have been asked if they want them, or if there are ways that they might adapt them. So I think that's actually, I would say that's one of the best ways to make sure that it's going to be culturally relevant.
Yeah, I think that's a great point.
And I would echo that, particularly with the engineering. Engineering does change the world, and you can really see the difference you're making on society, and girls buy into that. Mm-hmm. So when you can come up with projects that will demonstrate it, I think it's really important. We have then some just girl-specific programs, like we did a program called Girls Who Code in Sacramento. Yeah. And so we invited girls from economically disadvantaged communities to come in, spend 6 weeks of the summer, meet our CEO, and just learn how to code. And it was a really big success. And then you also role model. Our president is a woman, and I think that makes a difference. She's an engineer, and you're putting someone out there that girls can aspire to emulate.
Well, I'm glad you brought up engineering, because actually the great thing about engineering is that engineering design process, and we know that girls often don't want to fail, and so we have to work with them on knowing that you might have to try and fail and try again and try again. Mm-hmm. And so I think engineering actually is a great way to get girls excited about STEM generally.
Yeah, that's great. I also wanted to sort of pose this question to Roya. How were you able to set up your company as one of the, I think, first or one of the few female CEOs in this IT world in Afghanistan? How were you able to do that successfully, do you think?
I think that the youth is a related term here in Afghanistan, where 42% of the population is of age 14 or under. And I am at least twice the age of the most people in Afghanistan. And we have to and want to grow up earlier here in order to move Afghanistan toward the modern world. This is a similar story for my success. I'm grateful that I have recognized by Western publication like for the Time 100 most influential people in the world in 2013. But when I came back to home, to school where there is no computer and no internet connection, I see that the wars needs to continue every day.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks. All right. What about focusing? You mentioned engineering and role models, and those are great examples, and research has shown that those certainly do make a significant impact. And I'm excited to hear that Intel will be releasing a study next week. We will watch for that. Are there other things or other practices that you have found that have really been helpful in encouraging girls or women to go into STEM or to get back into learning? Have you used mobile technology to do that? Have you found it a real unique tool enabling that process to happen? Or what is it about technology, if you think technology is really a tool to enable that?
If I may,
Yeah, Abel, go ahead.
we just let me rephrase. I think that one of the best ways to try to involve young women in your projects is to do two things. Number one, to absolutely ensure that you are working with the local experts who are already women, experts who have already covered a lot of the ground down there. At UNESCO, we never go into a country and down to a community and say, this is what we would like to do. It's almost always the reverse. We are always going and asking who has done something, what has worked well, and we are always hunting for those very strong women leaders who are inspirational already. To give you a very good example, we just finished the UNESCO Youth Forum, where we were presenting on the UNESCO Youth Mobile Initiative that we are trying to start, and our intention is to try to encourage young women, particularly young people, and especially young women, to develop mobile apps. And the best way to encourage young women to develop mobile apps is to have young women who are already mobile app developers tell them how they got into it. So we got Martha Chumo. She's from she's from Nairobi, Kenya. She's 19 years old. She's an accomplished web developer. We got Patricia Duocham. She's from Bangkok. She's also an accomplished web mobile apps developer. We also got Dorothy Gordon from Ghana. Not so young. Dorothy is a matriarch of the software development scene in Africa. But together, these three women were beautifully inspiring to all of the youth that we had gathered in Paris for the UNESCO Youth Forum. About 600 youth milling around. These three women alone had crowds of women saying to them, show me how you did it, because it's so hard. It's so technical, isn't it? Isn't this a boys thing? All all of these myths and misconceptions were being destroyed one by one by these inspirational women.
That's fantastic. I think that's fantastic to hear. Congratulations.
I've just posted the link for the video of one of our young programmers.
Did you post it on Twitter, or where did you post it?
I'm posting it in the chat feed here, and I'll post it on Twitter as well now.
Rebecca, if I could just add one comment to what Abel said. I think working with the communities is paramount, but also understanding the dimensions of why women are often restricted from owning and using mobile phones or discouraged from using mobile phones. Prior to joining UNESCO, I spent over a year in rural Azerbaijan. And in that community, the primary barrier to women using mobile phones was a fear of communication outside the family, and primarily concerns about infidelity, that a phone would enable this type of behavior. And so I think sometimes working with the community to confront some of those concerns directly has proven to be quite effective, and also to show that mobile phones provide a portal to much more than just person-to-person communication, that it can be a portal to very rich educational opportunities, to opportunities about employment, and so forth. So again, understanding the dimensions, the particular dimensions of why women are excluded from using phones in certain communities.
Yeah, Mark, I think that's a great point. I think technology can be a game changer in terms of changing the culture of communication and providing a voice to people who, might not be able to speak up. It's not culturally acceptable. So that, I think you're right on. Why don't we open it up to the audience and see if there are any questions from you guys. Does anybody have any questions that they want to pose to the panel, either about in general, empowering women through the use of ICTs or getting women and girls into STEM? Any questions out there? It's hard to see. No? Okay. Yeah, why don't we can play, Abel, the link that you posted. Maybe. Maybe not. Well, we can post it to, we'll post it on the Twitter, and folks can see it if they want to. Okay. What about, have any of your organizations done any gender analysis in terms of learning? How do boys and girls learn, and if there's a difference in the way that they learn related to STEM? Has anybody done that?
Well, I think the first thing it's important to say is that there's no difference in academic ability, right, between boys and girls. So that actually makes it a little more concerning that we don't have more equal numbers, right? So, the strategies that we know work for girls work for underrepresented groups, and they work for boys. I mean, often when you think about hands-on and problem-based learning and contextual, those are just great educational practices and strategies to use, right?
Yeah, so why is it, do you think, that there are so few women and girls entering in these fields?
Well, it's a very complex problem, but I definitely think that we don't have enough role models. That can be difficult, and actually that's something where technology is really helping, because we have a number of programs where we're able to Skype or Google Hangout, whatever, bring in role models, especially in rural areas where there might not be role models, right? So I think definitely having more role models, and I think also just incentivizing programs to use the strategies that we know work. This is one of those issues where we actually know what to do, we just don't have enough people working on it.
Well, I think providing mentors, which we try to do, and One of the programs that we got involved in about 2 years ago is called Stay With It, and it was an outgrowth of the President's Job Program, and it was in partnership with Georgia Tech. And so the idea was, if you are in college following a STEM program, and this is for men and women, you would have a network of both advisors and fellow students to go to when you're having trouble or thinking about quitting. And so it just provides a support system for engineering students that wasn't there before. Mm-hmm. So it's 2 years in the making. We don't have any reports out yet. And the other thing that I just wanted to point to is, you have to start with the basic education in emerging countries particularly. And so that's where we've put a lot of our efforts from Intel, is into digitizing education and to ensuring that there is access to that education, whether it's a tablet that you can take home and you can go into the privacy of your home to study, which is essential for some countries. I think that's really helping a lot. Two, in the U.S., advocating for a set of the Common Core of standards that states have agreed to, that they're going to push for now, English and math, but it will include science as we go up the chain. So a lot of the programs that we're involved in are not girl specific, but I think it's providing that access to all the students, and the expectations are important.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And what about those of you virtually? Do you have any other things that you wanted to add in terms of, I think this is more from the domestic side that you both are speaking to. What about from the international perspective? No.
Sorry, I was tweeting.
Multitasking.
It's there's a lot of nice questions coming in on the Twitter feed. So.
Oh, you're putting it in writing instead.
This.
Oh.
Yes.
He's answering them for us.
Question from how to integrate into. Now I'm beginning to understand. There's multiple panels going on.
So, Abel, can you talk a bit more about OERs and how you're using them? And I know that UNESCO has a good policy about ensuring that there's equal access for boys and girls. But could you talk a bit about how OERs, open education resources, might be used? Are they being used to try to help entice or help reach girls more? Or I don't know, are you finding that at all?
I couldn't give you hard numbers. These things are too hard to keep track of, and also they're changing constantly. But not necessarily say OERs, but there's this new phenomenon, MOOCs, massive open online courses. And here I know for sure that this is having a huge beneficial impact for young women's access to high quality education. Our role at UNESCO is to try to harness this rather emergent phenomenon. It really burst into popularity 2011, 2012, to try to convince MOOC providers to make sure that these courses are OERs. It's very clear to distinguish that 99% of all current MOOCs are not OERs. These are still copyrighted courses owned entirely by the institutions and the MOOC platforms that are providing them, that are giving away currently now for free. But what we're maybe a little bit wary about is that eventually they will start getting costs. They will start getting fees. So we're trying to make sure that they are OERs. Most of the developed countries are aware of the three big US-based MOOC providers, edX, Coursera, and Udacity. There's now a big new MOOC provider coming out of the United Kingdom called FutureLearn. There's one in Germany, iVersity. There's one in America, the Australia, called Open to Study. But very recently, in September, we were very pleased to be involved with the European Commission of 28 member states. There, the new European MOOC initiative that is called Open Up Ed is going to be openly licensed at its core. All of the 220 courses that are going to be launched by the Open Up Ed MOOC initiative are fully openly licensed OERs. They're available in about 12 languages. They're being offered by about 22 institutions across Europe. And of course, like all of the other MOOC providers, it's open to any other institution. When this potential institution visits the Open Up Ed website, the first question they're going to see is the course you're going to offer going to be openly licensed? If you say no, stop reading. Go to edX or Coursera or something. Open license courses for us, combined with the scale, the massiveness of MOOCs, is a very exciting opportunity for us, because what this means is that entrepreneurs such as Roya in Afghanistan are going to theoretically be able to obtain technically more easily able to technically obtain these courses, translate them into the local languages, customize them to the local teaching and learning requirements, and be confident in fully reselling these courses locally in order to not only recover costs, but to earn those little bits of profits that make this teaching and learning sustainable. And sustainability is so critical, and for us, OERs are just a wonderful vehicle for not only the transmission of knowledge, but the sustainable transmission of knowledge, or let's say the viable transmission of this knowledge.
Yeah, wow, that's very exciting. And when did you say that was being launched?
It has been launched September 25th. OpenUpEd, one word, .org.
Okay, great. All right. Okay. So I want to talk a little bit more about challenges that you all might have faced in trying to encourage girls to be more interested in STEM or get involved in STEM in your various projects. Are there experiences or lessons learned that you could share? Maybe things that you've tried that didn't work so well, or things that maybe you thought would really be a great idea, but wasn't the best actually when you tried to implement it? Or maybe just what has been your greatest challenge along the way?
I know for us in terms of Latinas, that it's very important to involve the family. And so we've learned that we have a number of programs that we work with where they might have like mothers and daughters come in together, and that making sure that again, I guess we're getting back to making sure it's culturally relevant, but really thinking about the community so that girls can continue to have that support even at home as well. And so, and scheduling things, maybe scheduling things and providing dinner, thinking about having family science fairs, for example. So that has been a challenge because parents have a lot of things to worry about, and STEM might not be top of their list, right? So thinking about how you can encourage families to come together and to actually spend some time thinking about future careers.
Yeah. I don't have that day-to-day hands-on experience to answer the question, but I would say we must be doing something wrong because we haven't seen an appreciable increase in girls getting involved in engineering and STEM fields. So from what my limited experience is, I'm told that it's because now smart girls have lots of opportunities. And maybe, being in medicine or pursuing law or business degrees are more lucrative initially, and they're choosing those fields. So, so anyway, you know, as I said, I don't have a lot of detail, but that's what we're seeing. So, in Intel's experience, what we've tried to do is document what we're seeing, have those numbers. We did a study about a year ago just to look at the use of technology by girls and women in emerging markets, and found that there was a gap of at least 30% between men and women. So knowing that the gap is there, we're going to be instituting programs with NGOs called She Will Connect in emerging markets. We don't have the details on those programs. We're doing the research right now to figure out. But you know, knowing what the numbers are, I think, is really essential in developing a program to attack that.
So I'm curious about the study that you did. Can you tell us a little bit more about it? You know, how widely was the study implemented? Do you know?
Yeah, I think it was mainly in sub-Saharan Africa.
Okay.
And what we found, you know, primarily the male of the household would have any kind of technology. But when the women did have it, of course, it had increased their access to medicine, their security, it increased their access to education. It provided better opportunities for their children, so it made a huge difference between the haves and the have-nots in this case. You know, it's a cultural issue primarily for some of the same reasons that were mentioned earlier about being families not wanting their girls particularly to have external contact. So, you know, we need to be cognizant of that and still work to put this technology into the hands of the girls.
Oh, we have a question. Okay.
Hi, thank you to all of you. I had a question about kind of strategies to get women interested in STEM. And I found in my own experience that a lot of my male friends originally got into technology or became interested through gaming. And there's really not a lot of games, especially when you're younger, that are really targeted towards women. And the ones that do include women usually have women who are just completely objectified and unappealing to women who want to kind of explore this area. And then also when women do get into STEM, I was a research assistant for a computer science professor in college, and every time I would be in the computer science building, people would ask me if I was lost all the time. And so I'm just wondering if there's really being anything done to address those factors and kind of making women feel more comfortable in the field.
Well, yes. I don't know you. I feel like you're a plant because I'm actually working on a project right now with Northeastern in Seattle. We're starting a large games initiative, and our goal actually is to create games for girls that are informed by their research. And I think if you Google or if you web search games Northeastern, you'll come across our webpage. We just started, and we really are thinking about how can we create games that encourage girls to persist in STEM. I also think in computer science there's certainly an image issue, and there are many organizations doing a lot of work around this. The National Center for Women in Information Technology, NSF, has funded a number of projects as well, but we're not there yet. I mean, your example of people asking you if you were lost is a really good one, and a number of people have been working on that for some time, but it takes a lot of work to sort of change culture and perception, and I think we're talking about it, but we're not there yet.
Part of this She Will Connect program that we're working on right now will have a mobile gaming platform. So yeah, we're getting that, and we're trying to make some improvements in that area. So I think that is a very important piece to it.
Rebecca, if I can just interject here.
Sure. Go ahead, Mark.
We've had conversations about this at UNESCO a number of times, and during an expert panel about this, it was pointed out that we often call attention to the gender gap in STEM, so pointing out how many more men than women are pursuing careers in these fields, but that putting all this attention on that can actually be counterproductive because it sends a message that to women that this is not for me. And so where we're trying to put more attention now is on the tremendous opportunities for employment in STEM. That this is a place where you can get a job, and not just any job, but a high-paying job. And that's not just in the United States. That's in Kenya, that's in Ethiopia, that's in countries in Southeast Asia. And it's also, especially if you're doing computer engineering, can be quite, can be quite mobile, where you can be working, for a large corporation remotely. So to talk more about the opportunities as opposed to the gap.
Yeah, that's a great point. And we actually heard earlier, or I heard in one of the sessions, I don't know if everyone heard it, Microsoft specifically referring to that they can't fill a lot of the jobs that they have. And these are high-paying, very high-paying jobs.
Right.
So exactly, that's exactly what you were just saying, Mark. And the jobs are also in the developing countries as well. So that's a great point, thanks.
Yeah, it was just a personal experience. My son is going to college. We went to one of the colleges he was looking at, and they had the engineering group that we were looking at, and so they gave a presentation, and 3 out of the 5 were women who gave the presentation and engineering, and they were excellent, and they just really sold it. And I think any girl sitting in that audience would have thought, wow, I can do that. And this is pretty exciting. And they all had job offers to go to when they finished their senior year. So, maybe even though I said we were failing, maybe having this funnel that we're beginning to get girls into to speak about their experience, show the excitement. And girls are so expressive when they do get excited. It's really contagious. So I think that we do have those opportunities to showcase the girls that are involved.
And I think those near-peer examples are really powerful.
Yes.
Yes, they're much more powerful than further apart peers. Great.
Roya, did you want to add something?
Yes, I think that in Afghanistan, the main difficulties are the lack of support of the families in the education of girls, security issue, and the economic situation. And education actually is free and open to everybody, but still it's dependent on the society and family tradition. The most of the families prefer to support their boys than their girls. That's why we created the IT centers inside of the schools and provide the free training for the females that they can get educated. And we also provide training for them to learn how to work with the social media and how they can get independency and also confident and self-sufficient, financial freedom through the social media. At the first, I also remember in one of the schools, the parents of the girls didn't allow that. They say that we don't want internet connection because they think that internet connection is very bad for the girls. But after a while, when they saw that the females can make money online, and they also participated and also helped their girls to write in the blogs and help them to make the videos. I mean, it was for us, it was a very good experience. And also, I saw that the girls, when they're using the social media, they got much more confidence to talk, and they could sharing their feeling. They could share what they thinking. And I think that's what's very good.
Yeah, those are great points as well. I think, empowerment and agency, really feeling empowered, and also coming with that, economic empowerment eventually. Mm-hmm. These are all really powerful things that really make differences both in just the lives of the individual, but then in the families, and the impact just spreads from there. So I think we're just about out of time, I believe. So unless there are any final burning questions, I want to thank all of our panelists here in DC and around the world. I think we're the only session that had a worldwide panel.
That's good.
So thank you all very much, and thanks to Isaiah for all your help. This is clearly an area where there's still a lot of work to be done. There's a lot of need for data, so I encourage anyone who's working in projects to collect data, disaggregate your data, please. But thank you all very much. This has been a really great, interesting, informative day, and hopefully we will continue the discussion.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, thank you.